Welcome to our Startup Ecosystem Expert interview. So this is a series of interview where we go pick the brilliant brain of startup ecosystem builders on our platform around the globe. So we hope this can provide the founders some insights on, the opportunities, challenges, people you should know, and how international entrepreneurs can actually enter those markets. So today we have Prem Nadar here with us to get a better glance of the Indian startup ecosystem. Welcome, Prem.
Hello, thanks, Billy. Thanks for your warm introduction. Hello, guys. I hope it will be wonderful talking to you all.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you. So let's dive into the questions. First of all, we would like to get to know you a bit more. So could you please introduce yourself to the audience so we know who you are, what you do in the Indian startup ecosystem?
Perfect. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Jungle Lakes. So Jungle Lakes is an open startup ecosystem. Our tagline is democratizing opportunities. We go by the belief that talent is everywhere, but opportunities are not. So we want to. So our mission is to create a. We are building a startup ecosystem, an open community, open global startup community, connecting all the stakeholders of the ecosystem with one another to explore greater collaboration and mutual growth. We connect the global corporation and the investors globally with startups from the emerging market and all those regions, so that it bridges a gap between the resources and the opportunities. So that's what is all about us.
Of course. Because we understand the gap between the startup founders and the opportunities. That's why that's actually the reason why we build the Founders Lair. But I'm so glad that we are on the same directions, that we are all want to help founders to get
Right.
help. So good to know that. Good. So amazing introduction. Thank you so much. Let's zoom into the ecosystem. So could you please tell the audience why Indian is a great startup ecosystem? Like what's good about it, and why should people go to India to start their business?
Okay, perfect. So the biggest advantage with the Indian startup ecosystem offers is its cost factor. We are unbeatable when it comes to the cost factor. You can register your startup, hire a few team, and get a startup up and running within a few $1,000s. The talent here is cheaper. Like you can hire a few interns or engineers for a few $100,000, and you can get it up and running. And secondly, there are huge opportunities here. Like we all know, India is an emerging market. It's a developing world. So there's a plethora of opportunities. Obviously, 1.4 billion population. Everyone is trying to become better. And the aspirations of the young Indians are increasing. So there's a plethora of opportunities here. Almost every sector, needs improvement, needs correction, and people are wanting for a better life improvement. Unlike the 20 years ago, where people were like, okay, we'll work it around, we'll just take it, we'll just adjust to this thing. So that's no more the mentality. People want better life. People yearn for it. So that's what I say. Like there are huge opportunities here to serve 1.4 billion people. So that's the thing. And so if you want me to tell specifically about the sectors, then financial inclusion is one big thing which you can focus upon, because even today the credit facilities are not available to the entire population. The unbanked population is still huge. So financial inclusion could be a sector which you guys can focus upon. And the healthcare sector, like quality healthcare. So that is one thing, everyone needs a good quality healthcare, correct? And secondly, the quality education. Like every parent here in India, uh, I'm not saying that the world over the parents are not obsessive, but in India there is too much more, the Indian parents are much more competitive and emphasize more on the quality education. So that is one sector which you can tap in. And quality of living, the good infrastructure, good healthcare, good residential buildings, good transport. So these are the sectors which needs immediate changes and improvement, and which presents a huge opportunity for you all, for the startup community.
Great. Very, very insightful. Very insightful. I'm just glad that you also point out several industries that's good for people to entering. That's very helpful. So besides that, my next question would be what are the most important things that the founders should know when they want to build a startup in India? More of like a hidden rule, people So things people should know, but they don't know.
So there are a few things that the people have to understand, the founders, when they are entering the Indian market. Number one thing, it's a slow market. It's an excruciatingly slow market. And this goes for the VCs as well, the investors. Most of the foreign investors who invest in India, this is for them as well. The typical VC fund cycle of 7 years to 10 years, that will not work here. That definitely will not work here. So you need to have at least 15 to 20 years time horizon. Only then, you'll be able to succeed here. And another important thing is that what works in the West or what works in the European market, the developed world, will definitely not work in here. India is a very, very different market compared to the West and all. So there are few startups who were working abroad in the Western world, and they came back to India and then say we will do this for the Indian middle class. So there's one thing which you need to understand. There's a huge difference between an European middle class, an American middle class, and an Indian middle class. The disposable income here of the Indian middle class is almost negligible. So they have very little money to spend on the non-essentials. So this is the number one thing which you guys need to understand. And another thing which you guys need to understand is that like I said in the first time, we are a 1.4 billion population. Obviously, uh, it looks good on paper. It looks really, really nice, right? 1.4 billion population is a huge market, so we can target and all those stuffs. But the reality is very different. It's extremely, extremely different. It's like the famous James Bond quote goes, looks can be deceptive. And that is completely true for the Indian market. Because a recent survey says out of the 1.4 billion population, only the top 30 million households of India have the paying capacity to pay a premium for the products. So essentially, and the rest of the population, they struggle to even pay for the basic goods. So even for the basics like the food, clothing, shelter, that's a struggle for them, and they're left with almost negligible disposable income to spend on non-essential. So technically, the startups are not their target audience is not the 1 billion population, but just the 30, 40 million, 30 to 100 million population, the top 30, the top 1%, what we call. That is what the target audience is. So this is one thing which you guys need to be very, very aware of. So because people blindly jump into thinking we have a huge population and we can target the entire market and this is a huge crowd and all. So that is not true. So only the top 30 to 100 million people have the paying capacity, and that is where the competition is intense, because every startup is targeting around these population. They want to target this thing because obviously people targeting those people who have the paying capacity, and only these people have the paying capacity. So the competition intensifies there, and the drawback is these 30 to 100 million people, the top 30 million households, they have a plethora of options to choose from. And India is a cutthroat market. I mean, in the cutthroat in the literal sense. It's a highly, highly competitive market. As a startup, you'll always find someone who can provide the same service that you do at a few dollars cheaper price. So the margin is always going to be an issue, at least for the next 20, 25 years, right? I mean, no doubt growth is there. I'm not saying but obviously to take another 25 to 30 years for us to reach that level. But in the interim time, this is going to be a challenge. So that's something which you guys need to be aware of. And another thing is, it is not an open community, guys. Please understand, Indian startup ecosystem is not an open community. Uh, it is what we call, there are a lot of gatekeepers, there are a lot of middlemen who will block your access. My friends in the Hong Kong, Singapore, US, and all, they say this thing. There it is easier to meet any founder or investor or the decision maker of some good company. But here it is extremely difficult to network with good people, because there are gatekeepers. There are gatekeepers blocking your access. Like I said, a network is your network determines the network. But here, building a good network is a huge challenge here. If you don't come from if you are straight out of a college, if you don't come from the Ivy League college like the IIT, IIM, or if you don't come from a good family background, it will be very difficult for you to make a name for yourself, because people are not willing to. The mentality here is not to give back. The mentality of helping out others, providing them a connection. Even in the friend circle, I will tell you this thing. If supposing one of my friend knows Masayoshi Son, for example, and I am working on a startup. So if I go to him and say Masayoshi Son, please introduce me to him. So he will not introduce me. He will be like, okay, you give me a cut of your thing. That's only I will help you out. So the culture of helping out and giving back to society is missing here, and that's the reason you see so many accelerators India failed. The tech stars, founder startups, they all had to shut down because the mentors are not available here. And then secondly, guys, beware of fake mentors, beware of fake investors. Because in the Indian startup ecosystem, especially in the startup events and all, this is very common. The middleman and brokers posing as investors, the consultants posing as mentors, trying to pitch you the services. So beware of them. Don't trust anyone blindly. So these are the two three things which the founders, if they are the in the Indian startup ecosystem, have to be aware of.
Thank you. This is so insightful. I personally, from outside, I definitely see India markets, as you said, like it's a huge market with so many people,
Right.
actually the biggest population right now in the world. But I didn't know there
Right.
are
Right.
so many like hidden rules after this. And I was quite yeah, I have to say I'm a little bit shocked on the things that you mentioned, especially like it's there are a lot of like gatekeepers. The culture of giving back is not really a thing,
Okay.
and also it's not really a founders market. It became like investors market because the competition between startups are so competitive. So yeah, I think that's like a very interesting insights. Thank you so much for this. But actually what you answered basically covers my next question, which is what is the biggest challenge that you think founders are facing here in India? I think you already covered a lot, but do you think if you can only name one, what would it be?
Mhm. Lack of capital, because there are no the investors in India are very what we call risk averse. So they will not be willing to bet on something new product. So they want reference. The first question they'll ask is, does a similar product exist in the world? Does it exist in the West? If yes, then that's how the conversation goes forward. Or else the conversation dead there itself. You're like, no, we've not been investing this thing. And number one thing is the investors. Number one thing is investors are already very low in India. I mean, the number of investors are pretty less, and they are very sparse. They're sparse, to be honest. And those investors who are there, they are very risk averse. So it becomes for the early stage startup, it becomes difficult to gain the initial capital. Another big challenge is that there are no early adopters, and there are no paying customers there. Like I already mentioned, just the 30 million population have the paying capacity, and the others don't. Right. And even those people who have the paying capacity, they're not willing to, they're not the early adopters. India is not a innovative market; it's an imitator market. So here the general trend is like, if something works in the West, if something works in the Europe, that's when the people will have more increased trust. I mean, even now you can see this thing, right? I'm wearing an American brand. It's not a Indian brand, right? Exactly. That's how the consumerism here in India is. They trust more on the American brands or the European brands rather than the Indian brands. So we're not early adopters. We are slow movers. And another biggest challenge is the monetization. Monetizing your crowd, monetizing customers is a huge challenge here. I'll give you one simple example, one real life example. You must have heard of Share Chat, right? Share Chat, that's Indian, what we call Indian social media app. So so they came up with the idea of targeting the tier two and tier three city people of India. So they had very good backers. I mean, on paper it looks good. Like India has a lot of rural population, so we will target them. We'll have in the English speaking population, India is less, so we will target the rural population, and we will have a huge audience. And they got investors from Google, and all those people were the blue chip investors, and they have a good target audience. I mean, the user base is amazing. They have over 200-300 million users as of now. But recently, in the month of January, February, their advertisers complained. Despite such huge target user base, they are not able to monetize it. So what's the point of having such user base if you cannot even monetize it? So this is going to be a real challenge here.
Right. I think it also relates to the fact that you're saying, people, only 30% of people actually have the leisure or have the money, extra money to spend. but the rest are mainly focusing on, their daily life and how can they survive. So I
Right,
guess
right,
that's
correct, correct.
also, yeah, that also contributes to the fact that you said it's hard for the startup companies to monetize their business. I totally agree with that. Thank you so much. It's a valuable, very valuable insights. So moving forward, what do you think? So what are the so Founders Layer is basically cares about like community a lot. That's why we actually because of the three products that we basically wants to help connect like founders with global opportunities. That's why we see the struggle that founders have, when they don't when they are at the early stage, they don't have access to different programs, or they have to follow like tons of a linking page just in order to
Correct, correct, correct.
in order to keep up with what's going on, what are the programs that's available. So this is what we do. And definitely we cares about like community a lot. We always think, okay, how can we help community builders like you, and how we can help the ecosystem in general. So we wanted to kind of want to also know who are the people that you would recommend in
Okay.
who are the people you would recommend to know in India markets? As you said, like there are so many like fake mentors, fake investors, fake gatekeepers, but I bet there are people like you who's willing to offer the hands
Yeah.
to others. So what are those people? Can you name few?
So number one thing, obviously there are few good people as well. It is not that everyone is a fake. So some good people are Kuljit Rai. So he's an active angel investor who takes bold bets. He's always looking for the next innovative startup and all. Obviously, he's not that. He does not place in the millions and billions, but he's a good angel level investor, seed level investor, who can place bold bets and he can make you a few recommendations as well. Another thing is there's an accelerator based in Bangalore called as Startup 360 and 100 Open Startups. The chairman is Krish Vardarajan. So he also is into the similar field. He connects global corporates to startups in India. So that's the thing. And then the venture capitalists, they are an accelerator investor based in Mumbai, and they have a good network as well. And plus, Indian Angel Network, they are, I think they are the oldest, they are the first angel network in India, if I'm not wrong. They have been in existence since 2005 or 6, I believe, if I'm correct. So these are the people whom I have met, interacted with personally, talked to them, and I've seen them over the years, and I've seen them grow. So I know that these people are definitely genuine.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I mean, the community definitely needs, people like you and people like them to be able to willing to help others. That's very good. Thank you for sharing. And then that goes to my last question, which is thank you so much for sharing all those, valuable insights. And we also want to return the favor to you. So we want to know what are, how can the audience of this video, or how can the global community be able to help you, what they can do?
Yeah, so the number one thing which the global community can do for the Indian startup ecosystem is give us access to a capital base, global investors who can take who can place bold bets on the innovative startups, and most importantly, they have to be patient. Like I mentioned in the start of the interview, the 7-year fund cycle will not work here. So we need those kind of investors who have the 15-year, 20-year, 25-year time horizon. So that's the number one thing. And secondly, please give us access to the global community should give us access to a rich market, the premium paying customer where monetization is easy, like the UAE, the Singapore, the Southeast Asia, the Europe and US. So we need to create more and more global gateways, helping the Indian startups to sell their products to in these developed markets, the high paying markets, so that monetization is easy. Like I already said, monetization is a difficult part in India, and many Indian startups have actually realized this thing. So what they're doing is once they reach a certain scale, once they reach a certain financial capabilities, so they're moving out of India, they're moving to US, they're moving to Europe, and even Singapore, Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, and UAE is a new entrant where Indian startups are talking to. So these are the things which you can help us out with creating more gateways, and also the corporates could take over more and more Indian startups here, so that they can integrate them into their portfolio and into their services. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for actually thinking of for the whole Indian startup ecosystem. But what are the things that we can actually do for you? Like you personally, I know that you have this Jungle Lakes and this company. So we want to know what kind of things or resources are you looking for right now?
So currently we are on the expansionary mode. We are looking at Southeast Asia as well as the UAE markets. So if you guys can help us out with the investor base in those countries or the corporates, so that will be more helpful. And also we help corporates globally to connect with the Indian startups where they can acquire these startups at their earlier stages and integrate them into their services. So any corporate connections and investor connections, that would be really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So for the audience, if you can, if you're looking for early stage Indian startups, please reach out to Prem, and I'm sure he will be able to help. Thank you so much, Prem. Yeah, I think this was a very good session and really good insights on the Indian startup ecosystem. And we're looking forward to connect you to other global startup ecosystem as well in the next couple of our other interviews. So hopefully, more dive into other regions like Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam. So please stay tuned to the latest videos. And yeah, thank you so much, Prem, as well. And so it was a great interview. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pili. You guys are doing a wonderful work. Thank you so much.